Hey there, fellow Cashflow hustlers. This is your host, Justin Grimes. I appreciate you tuning into the show today as we explore actionable tips and stories aimed at creating cash flow and ultimately a more fulfilling life. With us today is Scott Bauer. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on the show today. A little bit about Scott. He is a transplant from the state of Iowa. He started off in residential retail real estate sales with Keller Williams Realty and closed $2.2 million in volume in his first 12 months. Through that, he quickly realized that being a realtor was not a fit for him. Since then, he has moved into the investment space, flipping over 150 residential transactions and building a portfolio of rental properties with over $20 million in closed volume to date. So we're going to dig into that. He's also the host of the #Invest This podcast, interviewing only the elite of real estate investors for his listeners. Now with his knowledge and experience, he is moving into larger investment opportunities in a multifamily and commercial real estate, focusing on building strong relationships with his investors, providing solid returns, and building wealth for his family. So with that, do you mind sharing a little bit more with the listeners about who you are, where you come from, and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm a transplant from Iowa. Been here in the Phoenix, Arizona market for going on 7 years. Own HBSB Holdings. It's a wholesale real estate investment company. I have a small portfolio of properties that I just own outright as rentals and other cash flowing assets. And then just started buying some multifamily deals.
Awesome. In your kind of starting out here, so 7 years prior to that, or that included your first year as a commercial broker?
No. So when I first moved to Arizona, I was originally in logistics sales. Matter of fact, I moved here right out of college with the company that I interned with all through college, and when I was actually close with the president of the third largest third-party logistics company in the nation at the time, Jacobson Companies. And so when I graduated, I came out to Phoenix and was in charge of their staffing development division here in Phoenix.
Okay.
Basically what that is providing staffing solutions for companies out there that needed them. So a lot of warehouse management and CDL drivers, those types of jobs.
Okay. And through that, were you actively involved in real estate, maybe, or even passively at the time, or did that kind of take its own track?
Yeah. So that was all pre real estate, actually.
Okay.
That was just sales. And I was, funny story. I was dating a girl at the time who was in property management, and I was complaining about my job. And she said, why don't you go get your real estate license? It's sales, it's the same thing. And so I took her advice and went to school at nighttime to get my license originally back in 2013. And, tried working a full-time job and being a realtor at the same time. You can't do that. You got to burn the boats on one or the other, which I did. And, thankful that I did, because I wouldn't be here today if I did. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a blessing in disguise, perhaps, that conversation with the ex.
Right.
As an ex, I assume.
Yes, very much. Very much.
All right. We won't get into that, but let's talk a little bit about, kind of how you chose your particular niche in wholesaling in your market to get started, and then we'll take it from there and kind of to where you're at today. But as far as wholesaling, why did you choose that niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So, was a realtor and did $2.2 million in sales my first year in volume close, which may or may not, for the listeners out there, may or may not sound like a lot. Let me tell you, it's not a lot. I remember Keller Williams Realty, which is who I worked with at the time. They were hooting and hollering about me closing that much, and I'm looking at my bank account like that. Either I'm missing something or something's going on. It wasn't good. So I joined ASREA, which is the local real estate investors association here, and realized there were other ways you can make money in real estate. And originally it was in multifamily syndication. That's how it all first started. A guy by the name of Dave Lindahl came and spoke at the RIA, and basically what he was saying made a ton of sense to me. You know, you buy one apartment, or if you have one rental house that goes vacant, you're out of money. You have no more income. But if you have a 100-unit apartment complex and somebody moves out, you have economies of scale. So it really made a lot of sense to me at the time. So I'm so blessed. I called my mom, told her the scenario, and she was nice enough to loan me $11,000 to sign up for his program to learn how to do it. So started doing that, went through his program, and he had an event here in Phoenix where he had a student get up on stage who was local here in Phoenix, and I won't say his name, but I knew how to meet that guy because he was here local, and I wanted to meet him. So I got his phone number and blew his phone up for like a month before he actually took my call. And when he did, he said, okay, you know, you've been calling me, what do you want? I said, just give me 20 minutes of your time. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. You know, let's catch up. So he agreed to do that. That 20-minute meeting turned into a 2.5-hour-long meeting. We hit it off really well with each other. And he said, you know, apartments are great, but you're not doing them every day. You know, you might do 2, 3, 4 deals a year, but that's it. You're working a long time on this. A lot, you know. He said, I have this other idea, and you know, you're already a realtor. You already get how the residential stuff works, but it's with wholesaling houses. At the time, I was like, you know, I have no idea what that means. But he said that he had some people up in Salt Lake City, Utah that were crushing it, bringing in like $90,000 a month. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. So at the time, went up to Salt Lake City, job shadowed these guys for 4 days, really learned their kind of what they were doing, and then came back down to Phoenix and just went to action. My partner at the time, that individual I'm talking about, basically fronted the cash in order to send out the marketing, and I did everything else. So we did that together for about 6 months. But what I quickly found out in that 6-month time period was that I was doing all the work and I was not making the money. We were bringing in really good money from a per transaction standpoint, but you know, the way that we had our splits, I was only making 14% of the deal, which was nothing, really. So did it for about 6 months, and on the 6th month, I brought in $90,000 for him. I made $7,500, and that was the end of that. I just said, "Hey, man, you know, I really appreciate everything, but I need to go do this on my own." And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Started my first company when I was 17 years old, so it just was my path. I need to go down.
I gotcha. Okay. On when you split off on that, did you need to bring your own capital to the deal? Did you have to raise money, or were these simply assignments?
Yeah, so I did have to bring it because, you know, even in wholesaling, where even if you do an assignment or, you know, you do a double escrow, where you don't need to bring your own money to the table to buy the deal, you still have to spend money on marketing. You have to get the leads in, okay? You get a lot of the leads in, and then you have to convert them. And of course, at first, you're not very, very good at it. So I actually had a kind of an ironic story. When I quit my job as a realtor, to become a realtor, I cashed in my 401k. I think it had $6,500 my name, and I made like $40,000 in my first year as a realtor. And then when I broke off on my own to start my own wholesaling business, I actually maxed out a couple of credit cards that I had in order to fund the marketing. And fast forward probably another 6 months from there, I actually figured out an algorithm that allowed me to basically sign up for 10 credit cards at one time. I had great credit, so sign up for 10 credit cards at one time. As I was approved, I'd instantly call. We'd get a price increase or try to get the balance increased on those card reserves. And then when they send you the check or the card in the mail, they send you convenience checks as well. So I would just write myself a check for 90% of the allowable credit limit, and I would deposit it in my business checking account to use as business capital. Mm-hmm. Because I knew that I had between 12 and 21 months of 0% interest to make that money work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confident that I was either going to figure it out or I was going to have a hard lesson. And I was going to be out of real estate.
Right. Go all in. Awesome.
Right.
That's pretty cool. When you were starting out, just curious, kind of you know, I mean, that's a substantial bet upon yourself. You know, how much money, roughly, not to get too specific, but I mean, was it $5,000 a month to get in the leads, or is that low or high, or?
Yeah, so it's right about $5,000 a month. It was 10,000 leads was my very first draw, but I got to back up from there because one of the biggest things that has allowed me to get further faster has been coaching and mentoring. In this game of real estate, this is not something where you need to reinvent the wheel. It's actually very important that you don't do that because you will fail. And there are people out there and organizations out there that can guide you through that so you don't make those mistakes. So I cashed in got all these credit cards, had all this debt now. Well, I need to have some support. So I actually called up now a good friend of mine, Kent Clothier and Justin Colby. Justin Colby's here local in Phoenix, and I just approached him and said, hey man, like this is what I'm doing. Can you support me, or what do I need to do? And he said, listen, Justin at the time had been wholesaling for quite a few years and was very experienced in it. And he said, you know, I will personally teach you how to do this, but I need you to sign up with Real Estate Worldwide because they'll give you all the back end system. So that's what I did. I took $10,000 at the time that I really didn't have. Of course, this is borrowed money. And I put it into Real Estate Worldwide to basically give me their systems and to get Justin as a coach. And, you know, from there, it was just putting it all in action. It's really a very simple process. It's bringing leads in the door, converting leads, and finding a buyer to buy them. Very simple.
Nice. On your conversion, do you have kind of a target that you're looking to make sure you bring in and convert back then, and then I guess even now?
Well, so from a conversion standpoint, we get about 150 leads a month, and out of one in every 25 or 26 leads is a deal that will net us at least $10,000. Now that's of course a very medium number. That's a mean, but that's what we shoot for at a very, very minimum. Most of the deals are $20,000 profit now.
Okay.
So it is very important to know your numbers. For everybody out there listening, you need to know them like the back of your hand because that's what fuels your business.
Got it. So, you know, what you've been able to do now is you're kind of building out and scaling up that side of the business. Yeah. So maybe 7 years ago you did however many deals. Now, how many people are you working with, and what does your business look like as compared to the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I still stay very lean, very, very lean. So there's myself, my assistant, and then I have an acquisitions guy and then a disposition team. And so that's it for the wholesale business. And that really works well.
Can you kind of talk through maybe the basic job descriptions of each one of those members or departments, if you will?
Yep, absolutely. So the admin, really what her role is, she does way more than just my wholesale stuff, but she just keeps me organized, really is what she does. You mentioned I have a podcast, so she makes sure that all the podcast stuff is done correctly and on time and edited out and make sure all that's good. She sets up all of my meetings and making sure that my calendar is right and organized. And that's primarily what she does, is just kind of like my back end side to make sure that I'm doing stuff in the right order, you know, that I don't leave anything unchecked. The acquisitions guy, his job is to acquire properties. So you're doing everything from answering the phones to following up on old leads to going on appointments. And ultimately his job, one and only job, is for acquisitions. We need to get properties in the door. Now, I still do a lot of the underwriting just to be safe. But if I don't and he pulls in a deal, then I still go back and check it, basically. You know, so I've trained him up to, you know, to be able to understand how this process works and how to underwrite deals. And, you know, of course, we're always working on that, but it's an ever-evolving type of thing.
Okay.
The dispositions team, on the other hand, their whole job is, of course, to dispose of the property. So they're out there, they're networking with other buyers. They're actually, the ones that sell the properties to investors once it's done.
Okay. And are those guys like salaried, or are they kind of contract?
Yep. So the acquisitions guy is 100% commission. And I actually pay him very, very well. Typically for an acquisitions person, a lot of people will say they pay, 10%, 15%, maybe as high as 18%. And I pay my guy 22.5%. And the reason I do that is for a couple of reasons. One, I want him to be motivated. For me, it's a lifestyle play. Having him really working hard on the acquisitions is very important because it allows me to focus on the business more. How do I expand? And I want him to feel like he's, being fair. That was one of the major reasons why I left my partner in the past, was because I felt like I was getting shorted, and I don't want him to feel that way. Mm-hmm. So, by paying him 22.5%, I feel that, that's a good number.
Nice. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. At what point maybe did you insert each of those team members in your growth here over the past 7 years?
Really, all of it happened this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's all happened this year. And really, the way that I was able to scale up my business by myself originally was through systems. Mm-hmm. One of the most important systems that you can ever have in a wholesale business is a good CRM system. And I'm going to go out on a limb here in a sense, and I'm going to promote, because I believe in this company, InvestorFuse. I was the first, actually, person to help them develop this system based around a wholesale business. And we just continue to keep getting better and better and better. And actually this year we just released version 2.0. So, that's very exciting. But really what it is you never want to let a lead fall through the cracks. Every lead that comes in the door needs to be harnessed as if it was gold, because it is gold. And they need to you need to treat them that way. So every lead, you need to make sure they're being followed up with in a timely manner. And that's not just today. That's over time. So they need to be touched via emails, via text messages, via phone calls, and slide broadcast voice messages or other types of voicemail drops, because you want to keep them engaged. In the wholesale business, not everybody's ready to sell their property at a discount today. But tomorrow, something in their life might happen where all of a sudden it becomes a viable option for them. And you want to make sure that you're the first person they think about when that happens.
I got it. Now, as far as kind of the mechanics of that system, is that do you buy lists, or do you come up with your lists externally from that system and then insert them in there and work it? Is that how that works?
So the list that I actually, so you can get lists from all different types of providers from lots of different places. Real Estate Worldwide, Find Motivated Sellers Now list is a very, very good list. It's a subscription that you have to pay on a monthly basis or a yearly basis to be part of that, to have access to that. But the data is phenomenal. You can also go to other places like ListSource and places like that to pull your list. You can even go to the tax record. But you just got to make sure that you scrub your list very, very well. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's another very important part of my business is my marketing system, because I have a mail house that's it's one guy that I work with, and he handles getting all of our mail, which is my main source, direct mail, out the door, scrubbed, cleaned, and on time, and it's very regimented. So we drop mail every single week. Mm-hmm.
What on basic budget, general numbers at this point? You still at that 5,000 number on marketing? You exceeded that?
Yeah, no, we're much above that now. So we drop 20 to 25,000 pieces a month, which is about 12 to 15 grand for that a month.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a big difference from where you started out. Awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Let's talk a little bit about maybe I guess some of your longer term vision or goals. I think one of the more important things that we do as entrepreneurs is set those goals and give ourselves some things to shoot at so that we know where we're aiming consistently. You recently moving into the multifamily space, so that's obviously one aspect of your goals. Do you mind sharing, diving in a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, when I started at the beginning of this year to bring on a team, my acquisitions guy, even brought in my assistant new this year, and the disposition side of the team. I did that on purpose because I've always wanted to be in multifamily syndication, and it really, I couldn't do all the jobs in order to move into that space. So that's why I hired those people and brought those people on board. The long-term vision is really to have a wholesale business that operates and runs really without us being there, or without me having to be present in the business, while we focus on buying larger apartment properties that we're syndicating with other investors and sharing in the profits. Because wholesaling is great to build up capital. It's a very easy way to get into the investment space and to build up capital, but you don't own anything at that point. You're playing with cash. You're buying and selling these properties in cash, and you're bringing lots of cash in the door, which is taxed at the highest percent, right? And you have no ways to lower your taxes, and so you need to own stuff, and that's really kind of where I'm going. I recently had a birthday at the beginning of July, and I really made the decision at that point that I'm going to focus on owning and a lot more.
Nice. Awesome. Let's, so part of, you just recently closed, I think, on your first multifamily property. Yeah. And you got another one. We were talking offline recently. You talk a little bit about kind of the mechanics of how you got into those deals and the basics of it.
Yep, absolutely. So we just closed on 120 units I'm not going to say where it's at, but it's in the Midwest. And really what that is, it's leveraging your team, leveraging the people that you're connected by. So basically the mechanics of that deal, we bought it at 75% occupancy. Of 60 of the 120 units have already been remodeled. 60 still need to be remodeled. We bought it for around a little more than $4 million, and we have a rehab budget of about $725,000 to renovate those remaining 60 units. The other great part about this deal is that it's 95% of it's seller financed. So that was a really good thing that we were able to achieve. What I like about this market too, and what allowed me to get outside of Phoenix and go back to the Midwest, is we look at key indications in different markets that'll show, a safe, positive area where I'd want to invest. And one of those is job diversification. You don't ever want to be in an area where one type of industry holds more than 25%, and really probably more than 20% of all the jobs available in that area. So for an example, if Amazon, just as an example, has the majority of the jobs there, and then all of a sudden Amazon decides they want to leave, well, now what's going to happen? Now all of a sudden people are going to move out of your apartment buildings. You're not going to be able to charge the same amount of rent, and it's property value is ultimately going to go down. Well, in this specific market, the two major industries, which is healthcare and technology, only made up 15% of the available jobs in that area. Not to mention that, but we've had a consistent growth for the last 20 years in this market. Even during the downturn, they didn't have massive fluctuations because of the job diversity. Everything is kind of weighs itself out, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. Nice. Let's see here. One of the things I wanted to ask you. So, as life and business goes and things come up, who do you turn to for feedback and guidance?
Absolutely. Very, very important. So, like I said, very big proponent on coaching mentors and people like that in your life. I have a business and personal coach by the name of Trevor McGregor. He's a Tony Robbins peak performance coach. Not that necessarily matters, but he is my go-to guy. Anytime that life throws me a curveball or something happens within my business that I need some guidance on, I turn to him and ask him for his feedback. And you need to have those people. That might be a coach that you pay. That might be your father or family member or something like that. But you need to have somebody who's going along the same path that you're going, that believes in you, that you can turn to for advice like that.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. All right, man. You ready for the rapid hustle round?
Let's get it.
All right, awesome. What is your favorite resource, book, podcast, or other that you found useful in your cash flow hustle journey to date?
Oh yeah, Joe Fraliss's podcast, which is the best ever show. I learned a ton from that. Active listener on that, almost at least weekly.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. That's a good one. He gives away a ton of content and a lot of insight. He's got a variety of guests from all walks of life and skill sets and all that good stuff. So nice. If you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were starting out, what would that be?
I took this advice, and it's to never give up. You can never be beaten if you never stop trying. So when times get hard and you're trying to drink from a fire hose with all the information, trying to get into an industry or a business or start your own business, and nothing seems to be going right, that is the optimal opportunity for you to learn. When things are not as you want them to be, it's just an opportunity for you to learn and keep moving forward. And that's the most important part, is to never give up.
Yeah, awesome. Good advice. Finally, how can the Cashflow Hustler listeners get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I'd love anybody out there that wants to know more about me or my business or how I might be able to help them. Send me an email to my personal email address, scott.bauer@hbsbholdings.com. Love to answer any questions. Love to help out in any way I can.
Awesome. And you got the podcast, hashtag Invest This on iTunes and all that good stuff. You got some good content on there as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, man. That's all I got for today. I really appreciate the conversation. You're kind of walking us through the growth of your business in the wholesaling space, and now where you're headed off to bigger and better pastures, perhaps with the multifamily space, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I like being here. Have a good
All
one.
right. All right. Thanks, Scott. Take it easy.